Cheers. How we doing, folks? Let me catch up with live chat. And if you got any burning questions about, I was uncomfortably close for way too long. If you have any burning questions about Helios or either of these other IMs, or frankly, anything else that is on top of your mind, now is the time. So yeah, let me catch up with live chat. SLXR, thanks for joining me early. Predicting a solid 4. Here in Patel, problem solved is better than small is better. I was about to make a, okay, I see what you're saying. I see where you're going with that. Subby bass. Wow, super using ASLA and not either spin fit or spring tips. Well, that's kind of astute of you to notice, because yeah, in the thumbnail, I have these with the ASLA on them. Well, the truth is, I didn't actually listen to them with those ear tips, and I didn't listen to it with this cable. I'm just putting it back together for the review. I actually did listen to it with spin fits. In fact, here we go. These are the ear tips that I listened to it with. They helped improve the fit for me. Chris Simons. Wow, I was just watching the Precog collab video. Yeah, and if you haven't seen that yet, I shared it on the community section of YouTube. Precog, like I mentioned, was over here at the studio yesterday. He was demoing the Helios SE as well as a number of other IMs that I've got. So if you want to see his thoughts on the Helios SE as well as some thoughts on some other IMs, check out his channel, Precog Vision, here on YouTube, and he impressively put together that video in like less than 24 hours. What's up, Huck? How you doing? Just finished work. It's time. Well, glad you could finish work at 2:30. Impressive. I guess that's the benefit of starting early, huh? What's up, Rob Hawk? How you doing, sir? Red Gopnik. Hey, good afternoon, y'all. Good afternoon, y'all. To you as well. Johnny Walk, what's up? Good seeing you again. Jadis, my man, what's up? A review, my guess is 3 stars. What do you guys got? Interesting, okay. Sundara was also guessing 3 stars. Interesting, okay. And Subby Bass was remembering correctly, saying probably 4 since comfort was the biggest issue before. Where One Nation is saying, too bad this is limited to 50 units. Of course, Symphonium does have a redesign, but only a limited edition. Yeah, it is a little unfortunate. There's only 50 of them. I mean, like, I don't know how many of the original Helios they sold. I don't know. When you talk about IMs that cost over $1,000, how long does 50 units last? Is that just like gone in a month or so? Or is that some, enough stock to last a year? I honestly have no concept. But it doesn't sound like a lot. So again, if you want one, I probably wouldn't wait around a while. And Where One Nation saying, yeah, I've heard the Helios is hard to drive for an IM. It definitely is. So when I was doing these comparisons, going between the Supernova and the U4S, I would have to make minor adjustments to the volume, but they're more or less in the same ballpark of sensitivity. But when I plug this guy in, well, I'd have to completely change the volume setting that I was at, because this thing just takes a lot more juice to run. That said, I don't want to overstate it. Like, I could probably run this fine off of an Apple dongle. I didn't try, but I suspect it would run fine off of an Apple dongle. Maybe I shouldn't make that claim without actually trying it. Should I try it right now? Live on TV. Let's see what I can do. Kind of want to try that right now. Let's see. Can I run the Helios SE off of an Apple dongle? Now I guess my next question is, do I have a music app? Oh my gosh, I don't. I don't have a music app, but apparently YouTube is trying to convince me to watch myself. And precog. There we go. There's wow, look at that. Someone listening to me? What's going on here? But yeah, all right, let's pull up some music real quick and let me see if I can get these things running off of an Apple dongle, which I conveniently have sitting right here. The music of choice that I'm gonna go with is by an artist I've been listening to lately called Nilüfer Yanya. Oh gosh, this thing is, I mentioned problems with the 4.4 millimeter connector is it's not compatible with things like an Apple dongle. So we're also going to swap over here to the lovely Truth Ear Ola cable. And let's see. Have I got sound coming out of these things? I hear nothing, I think. Oh, I do hear something. This is very quiet. Okay. This might be a bad test. Okay, here's what I'll say. Apple dongle on Android, not quite enough. I mean, it's getting it to a volume level that I would be comfortable listening at, but I would usually want the volume to be able to get a little bit louder than I want so that I can then pull it back down to exactly where I want it. And I would say this is probably like one notch too low at max volume. That said, if I was listening on, like I don't have my music app here installed. If I was using a power amp, I would be able to get a little bit more juice out of the Apple dongle. So I would suspect this will work perfectly fine off of an Apple dongle. But if you're not using power amp, if you are familiar with the limitations of an Apple dongle on Android, at max volume, I would say is not quite enough for the Helios SE. And also true of the original. All right. What's up, Zerpocalypse? How you doing? It's good seeing you. Was that a week ago? Was that only a week ago? Oh, and Zerpocalypse was guessing, I'm going to guess a 4. Had a chance to listen to it last week. Very nice, but it does sound like a Helios and all that entails. Yeah, both good and bad. Rob Hawk saying, I was surprised when Precog said he had sold his OG Helios. Yeah, frankly, I actually was a little bit surprised too, because I know he liked that one a lot. We both liked it quite a bit, but he liked it even more than I did. But I think it was the form factor that kind of broke him eventually. Scott Pledger saying, size-wise, it looks oddly like the Hexa, but I'm guessing this is larger. It's definitely larger. Let me go grab my Hexa real quick. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Still here. Object permanence, etc., etc. What if I reorganize my stuff a little bit? Hold on. Video's not frozen. I'm still here. All right. To give you a sense of how large this is versus a Hexa. There you go. It's quite a bit larger than a Hexa, especially if you look at it from this angle. Like I mentioned, still a chonky boy, but it is, I would say, a medium-large size now, whereas the Truth Ear Ola I would honestly kind of describe as like a medium-small, at least in my ears. Red Gopnik saying, I'm either the only one that hates large 2-pin jacks. Wish the tiny plastic jacks and Moondrop Truth Ear cables were more normal. I 100% agree with you. Just to highlight what you're talking about, in case other people don't know. You're talking about these little connectors right down here. And this is pretty standard size, right? Usually they're about this size, and they're like kind of two different variations. This one is on the longer side. So you can see it's like this height, which is, let's call it 1 centimeter, and then maybe another 3 or 4 millimeters here for this little protrusion here at the bottom, in total making, you know, a connector that is this large. What Red Gopnik is preferring, and which I also personally prefer, is something more like this Truth Ear connector, which you can just see how much smaller it is. And now, does that matter? Well, I think for aesthetics, it really does. It makes a big difference. I think it also can improve fit, because the when I was, you know, outlining how this thing fits in my ear, right, with the shorter connector, this thing sticks up less, and so that it means that the ear hook is more securely behind my ear rather than sticking above and potentially, you know, floating over the top of my ear. So I think that the shorter 2-pin connectors that we got on these Truth Ear cables, and like you mentioned, Moondrop also does this, I agree with you. I think that's better, and I do wish that more IMs did this as well. Now I'm just taking everything apart. That said, would I say I hate these other connectors? No, I wouldn't say that, but I do prefer them small. You know, here's maybe kind of an interesting in-between, is this connector that we have here. This is on the Juzier cable, Juzier, sorry. And you can see that it is, you know, not massively smaller, but basically it just doesn't have this additional 3 to 4 millimeters down there, which means that it feels a lot svelter. If you were using this with an IM where this whole part could insert into the IM and kind of like be recessed, well, then it actually improves like the stability of the connection, and there's a reason for it being, but well, frankly, this cable can do that too. So I don't know. Let's give us small connectors, please. Companies, whoever's out there making cables, let's make it happen. Oh, I'm connecting this to the wrong thing. Oh well, whatever. I'm not going to do this right now. We'll deal with that later. Ace of Spades, how you doing? Nice. I will need to go back and watch this. These look massive. Michael Corcoran, $1,100 is my cursory Google search yielding accurate results in the price. It's $1,200. So the original Helios was $1,100. I assume it's still $1,100. I don't know, but the SE is up to $1,200. I don't know if that's just because of collab tax, right? They're ostensibly splitting revenue with the retailer, although the retailer already would be splitting revenue, so maybe there's not anything additional there. But there is also, you know, a crazy little thing called inflation that has happened over the past couple of years, so probably also contributing to it. Michael saying that it better come with a PlayStation at that price. Well, I can report and confirm that it does not come with a PlayStation. And Michael saying I have mixed feelings on 2-pin. They are messy and prone to break. But so many things that use them that it's probably the path of least resistance for compatible accessories. You know, I'm okay with 2-pin, you know? I think I've never really had issues with them breaking, per se. What I have somewhat experienced, and this is fairly rare, but is just having experience with 2-pin connectors getting a little bit loose over time. Or maybe they were even just kind of loose from the factory, and that can be a problem where if I'm having to frequently reseat a 2-pin connector to make sure that the IMs don't fall off the cable, which could be a problem. I don't think that's ever actually happened to me, but I've seen them become loose over time, and it makes me scared. It makes me scared. Joseph the Dreamer saying 100 burritos is greater than 1 Helios SE. I guess it depends. If you gave me an hour to enjoy an hour with the Helios SE or an hour with 100 burritos, I'd probably have a better time with the Helios SE. If you gave me a year with 100 burritos, that might be more burritos. That's definitely more burritos than I'll eat in a year. That's like 2 burritos a week. 100 burritos would probably honestly last me about 10 years. And I love a burrito. I should eat more than 10 burritos a year, but, well, maybe I shouldn't. I want to. We'll just say that. Oh, and Jade is asking, is it better than the Supernova? Hopefully I answered your question. I mean, I described how the Symphonium is different from the Supernova. From my preferences personally, but there are definitely things here about the Helios that the Supernova doesn't quite do. Again, just that that really smooth and forward treble presentation and wide head stage. Like, this does a pretty decent job of a wide head stage, don't get me wrong, but I think that this does better. And I think it also does a little bit better in terms of texturing, and just that sense of detail without fatigue, is what I think that the Helios is really pretty outstanding at. And you know, the Supernova I think does a very good job of that as well. It's no slouch, but I would put the Helios ahead in that regard. Joseph the Dreamer saying, there you go, Supernova. I mean, it's all about the Supernova. I love the Supernova. It's so bad. Javier Martin saying, worth every penny and then some. Which one are you referring to? Silver Null claiming that EQ can't fix everything. Was Jadis asking about Super or EQ earlier? I mean, I'll be honest, I am just not a big EQ user myself, so can EQ fix everything? I guess I'm skeptical, but I'm not dogmatic about it. Maybe there are people out there that are just EQ wizards that can solve every problem with it. I tend to believe that frequency response is not everything that there is to do with sound quality, so I would say the EQ can't fix everything, but it can fix a lot, for sure. Red Gopnik saying, am I crazy, or is that the Truth Your Ola cable on the U4S? You're not crazy. That is the Truth Your Ola cable that I've got here on this $1,100 IM, and that's a $19 IM that comes with a free cable, which is an awesome cable. SLXR, looks like YouTube was giving you issues, man. So I don't know if anyone caught it. I read that comment while I was in the middle of comparing the IMs, and I thought for a second that something was wrong with the entire stream, so I freaked out for a second. But sounds like it was just wrong for you, which I feel sorry for. I feel bad about it being a problem for you, but I'm thankful that it wasn't a problem for me and everybody else. Joseph the Dreamer saying the S in U4S means soft. Does that mean you don't like the U4S? I would say that the U4S is the least incisive sounding of these three, which might contribute to that sense that you're describing of softness. I could see that. But what it does is another thing entirely, and I do like it. Koresh, I'm just going to stick with my Meteor. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the Meteor, I know that this is from the same brand, Symphonium. That is no guarantee that this is what you would like, because sound signature-wise, these are almost the exact opposite of the Meteor. Where they are similar is there's a little bit of the treble presentation in the Meteor that is kind of comes from this. But that's about it. Frequency response-wise, they're almost exactly the opposites. Whereas again, the Helios is very forward in the mid-range, very, very thin down below, whereas the Meteor is very, very thick in the bass, especially in the mid-bass, and pretty relaxed in the upper mid-range and reserved in the vocals. So I don't know if you want to try the exact opposite of a Meteor. The Helios SE is actually kind of it. Michael Corcoran saying, I wonder how much it costs to manufacture these. The margins must be outrageous. I mean, I suspect to some degree, but I think with anything like this, you kind of have to consider a couple of things. It's not just the cost of the parts. Okay, it is not just the cost of the balanced armatures in here and the circuitry and the cost of printing the shell, which if you were printing these, you know, at KZ scale, you could probably produce all of that pretty affordably. You have to also just consider the fact that, like, nobody is making these things at scale. So if you want one, it costs what it costs. And you also have to consider that, it's probably a modest team that's working on these things, but they're not selling IMs at the same scale of Sennheiser, KZ, et cetera, et cetera. They are a boutique brand, and to pay for that, like, what does a boutique brand cost? What does it cost to employ a team of, I'm just guessing, let's say 10 people full-time to make IMs for a relatively niche audience of people? Well, it costs about $1,200 an IM. So yeah, I really just would not, in almost any circumstance, concern yourself with what it costs to make something when you're deciding whether or not you should buy it. Concern yourself with, can I buy an alternative that I like as much at less price? That matters. But if this is the thing that you want and you want an alternative, I can't really think of anything. So $1,200, while it is definitely a high price for an IM, don't get me wrong, it's not outrageous to me. Jadis asking, is that the Jazeer 41T cable? And yes, good eye, Jadis, that is what I've got here on my Supernova. I had this on loan for a couple of weeks, and it just came back to me, I think last weekend. And I promptly threw it on the Jazeer cable because I was curious to see if it would be a good match, and I think it's a pretty good match. So I think the Supernova is going to stay on this cable. Previously, I actually had it on an Ola cable, but it was a decent match for it. I'll say it was a decent match, but it didn't make me feel special about it in the way that this cable makes it feel a little bit more special. Joseph asking, have you ever, Joseph, you all right, bro? Oh no, now YouTube jumped me. Hold on, let me get back. There we go. Chris Simon saying, I found the timbre of the U4S to be great. Supernova must be insane. I mean, I think that is one of the things that really stands out about the sound quality of this IM. Is just like how realistic, transparent, organic, natural, weighty, but not like thick. It's just made a mess, sorry. Brian Dong saying Supernova is better than the U4S. I personally would agree. I don't know have you heard them yourself? Would be interested in your take on how they compare, because they're pretty different. Some people are definitely going to prefer the U4S. Some people are definitely, like me, going to prefer the Supernova, but they do very, very different things. Kareem asking, how do they compare with the IE600? Well, Kareem, you ask about the IE600. Fortunately, I have it happen to be sitting right next to me. So here is the IE600. If I were to compare it with the Helios, well, pretty big differences in a number of ways. In terms of sound signature wise, this is kind of a V-shaped sound signature. It's got more bass emphasis than what you have here on the Helios, and also even more treble emphasis, right? I mentioned that this is kind of bright tonally, but smooth, not peaky at all. The Sennheiser is definitely peaky treble. That said, I don't find it to be fatiguing or sharp or uncomfortable at all. It's emphasized treble to the point of adding a lot of contrast to the sound, whereas the Helios kind of comes across as this low contrast mid-forward sound. So that's like a big difference in terms of that. Now, apart from that technical performance, I would say that they both maybe are similar levels of incisiveness. Maybe the Sennheiser is a little bit more incisive, a little bit stronger definition between sounds, whereas I think the Helios is going to give you a better sense of that micro contrast of like the difference, not between instruments, but the difference within an instrument, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I mean, there's also going to be the very large difference of size. Look at that. And this is, of course, a very small IEM here in the Sennheiser, but there's another difference to consider. Silver Knoll. I feel like metallicity means that the treble lingers on. Never heard a planar, though, as you know. Levi instead saying, I've got the Moondrop S8 and I was wondering how they compare. So if you want to know exactly what I think about how the S8 compares with the Supernova, or sorry, not the Supernova, the Helios, go back and watch my original review of the Helios, because that was the IM that was on the table here in the comparison with the Helios. From memory, and I haven't done this comparison back to back recently, so that would be the better version of it. From memory, I would say that the S8 is a little bit stronger in terms of image definition, right? In terms of, again, that 3D positioning, having a sound come like from specifically here versus over here. I think the S8 maybe does a little bit better job of that, but overall the S8 comes across a little bit more smoothed over, whereas the Helios is, again, really good with that micro contrast and texturing. When it comes to like the bass presentation, I think that the S8 is more consistent. When it's best, I think the Helios bass is better, again, when it digs really deep, like it sounds like a DD. And the S8 bass never quite achieves that, but I think it's a little bit more consistent because it's not so sub-bass focused. So with more of my music, it sounded a little bit, I got a little bit better sense of that front to back depth. And then in terms of like ergonomics, it's not even close. The S8 is like a phenomenal, one of the best fitting IMs I've ever worn. So, and also pretty damn gorgeous, if I do say so. S2 asking for good burrito spots. I mean, I'm up near San Francisco, so we got a bunch of pretty good burrito spots. Around me, there's one called Taqueria Pacifica. Carnitas is good. The Pastor is good. They've also got the, oh my gosh, burrito tacos. Also amazing. Do it. Meredith Gordon saying the ASLA tips on the Helios SE make it fit so well. Yeah, to be honest, like I mentioned, I did not really listen with these ear tips. I switched straight to the spin fits, but a lot of that was just because this is a review to our unit. This is going to be going to somebody else after I'm done with it. I didn't want to have to clean it, so I just threw something else that I had on it. And Meredith is saying there are still some Helios SE available, by the way. There you go. Jadis asking, how is the Juice IM going? Is it still getting time after the review? I'm looking around here. Do I have it? I do have it within arm's reach. So we'll make a special showing for the Jazeera 41T. Answer is yes, but not a lot. And that's primarily because I mentioned I had my 7th Acoustic Supernova on loan for a couple of weeks. I got it back either right after or right before I did the review for the Jazeera. And, well, because I had to compare it with the Helios, I had a pretty good excuse to just leave this thing in my ears the whole time. So for the past week, this has barely left my ears. That said, I did pull out the Jazeera and listen to it. For a few hours, yeah. Barco asking, when you rate an IM, are you rating them on an absolute scale of quality, of listening experience, or the price of the IM taken into account? The price is definitely taken into account with my scores. So a 5-star IM at $50 is not the same thing, is probably not better than a 4-star IM at $1,200. Yeah, it's definitely the way that I kind of like conceptualize it. It's like, if I was spending about this much money, is this the best that I can do, or are there other things that I could do better? And then the review scale kind of fits within that. What's up, Anupam? How you doing, sir? Good to see you. Dom Q, hella late, but that's okay. Hell, you NorCal boy? What's up, Dom? JV asking, am I going to review the SimGot EW200? No, I don't have any plans to, sorry. Mr. Finer Things asking, does the Alta Luna cable fit the Hexa? I mean, I see no reason why not, but we can answer your question here on on the stream. So the Alta Luna, that's the name of this cable. If you wanted to buy this cable, you can go online, look up Alta Luna cable. You should be able to find it. And then it is just a standard 2-pin connector, and it's got these protruding 2 pins. And then the Supernova has a slightly recessed connector. So it should be a good match. Let me slide these in. Ta-da! As you can see, because it's slightly recessed, you don't see as much of that little nubbin there. So there you go. Does it fit? Yes. Scott Pleasure asking, if you EQ this to HE1, is it as good? Yes, I assume so. I've never heard the HE1, but I assume that that is true. Just EQ my KZs to HE1 sound signature. Sorry, I'm putting things back together after that cabled fit demonstration. Javier Martins asking, which amp did I use for this review? I'll say right now, first thing up front, I think it doesn't matter. But if you're asking, I don't have it around me. I've mostly been listening on 2 different DAPs. I have a Hibby R5 Sabre and a Hibby R6 Mark III or Gen 3. Those are the 2 sources that I use, but I don't think it matters. I'm not a source guy. I think that is mostly much ado about nothing. And Rishu, no, I have not tried the SoundRhyme SR8. I've heard a little bit. Was it the SR7? Is that another one that people are talking about? Heard a little bit about them, but no, I have not had a chance to hear them myself. What's up, Brownie? How you doing? Thanks for joining. Good to see you. Spencer Moore saying there was years of R&D going into these IMs. Pretty unfair to judge it that way. I mean, look, you can judge an IM however the heck you want. I'm just saying, when you're making purchase decisions and how you want to spend your money, if the thing you want costs $1,200 and there's no alternative that costs less, I would not make whatever their profit margin is or isn't. I would not make that a deciding factor on whether or not you buy it. You should buy it whether or not you want it more than you want $1,200. Okay, that's how you should make that purchase decision. You could, I don't know. Again, you can think all you want about how they should price it, but maybe you shouldn't even do that, to be honest. If you don't like the price, you're not going to buy it, and that's kind of the truth of anything, right? It's like anything that you're not buying is technically overpriced for you. Like, that's kind of how it works. That's what prices mean. Price means the price at which I want this thing more than I want the money. Okay, and there's a lot of things out there that I think are pretty good that I don't want more than the money. And maybe that's because I only need one IM. I only need my Supernova. So why do I need to buy some other IM that's pretty good, but I don't want it more than $500? Let's say like the Zen's Top, right? That was a pretty good IM. I would be perfectly happy to listen to that IM all the time, but I don't really want to buy one for myself. Not that I'm going to say it's overpriced, but technically it's overpriced for me, because if it was $5, I'd definitely buy a Zen's Top. I don't think it should necessarily cost $5. That's not my argument here. My argument is just that price is much more about how much you value the thing and much less about how much it costs to make. Spencer Moore saying, I talked to Symphonium and they mentioned that wide bore tips sound better on the Helios than narrow bore. Can you tell the difference in tips? I'll be honest, I did not do any comparison with the tips. I mean, I might have when I did the initial review, again, like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, but I don't remember. What I will say is that I generally notice more difference from the fit than I do from the bore size. But your mileage may vary with that. But yeah, primarily when I'm picking different ear tips for my IMs, number one concern is just fit, fit security, comfort, stability, all that stuff. And the sound differences are generally pretty small, but there can be some fairly significant sound differences depending on the IM. And I think it has to do much more with how close the IM is to my ear canal versus the width of the bore. But I don't know, I'm not a scientist. Mr. Finer Things, you're looking for a balanced cable for the Hexa. I mean, you can get balanced cables much cheaper than the Alta Luna if you want, but if you like the cable, yeah, no shame in getting it. It's a solid cable. Sammy Caboose, so you think you will try to make a ratings table where everything is placed in absolute terms and not in relation to price? No, I've had people ask me for like a rankings sheet in the way that like some other people do it, and like I don't think I don't know, I don't think of audio that way, I suppose. Like I would have a really hard time doing that. Like I could probably tell you like what are my top 5 favorite IMs, like what are my 5 desert island IMs, and maybe that's a way that I could, you know, translate how I feel about IMs in a way that is understandable to people outside of my own head. But using a ranking system to say this one is this much, you know, 3 steps better than this one, I don't know. I don't think like that. So I suppose I could struggle and make it happen, but I don't think it would be that useful, if I'm honest. And I guess maybe there's the question, is like, what is the use of that? Why do people want that from me? Oh, Dom Q, you're in Boston. Did they say hella in Boston? Jade is saying that, yeah, pointing out KZ has a lot of drivers if that's what you want. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like mischaracterize what I think it was Corcoran was saying about price. Having a lot of drivers does not necessarily mean that it costs a lot to make, and that's definitely the case with like KZ stuff. They're not selling $20 IEMs because they cost, you know, $100 to make. But I get it. And Brian Dong, you're saying the SR8 is a phenomenal value at $750. Well, that is a pricey IM, so it's a hard one to take a leap of faith on. Meredith is asking, what do we think about the quintet coming up? So yeah, for folks that are interested, I will be reviewing the Kiwi Ears Quintet. I believe it's been shipped out from Linsol. So look for that review probably in a few weeks. It'll probably be a while. And I will also I'll remind people, I think I mentioned this on a stream not too long ago, I am dangerously close to losing the studio for the summer. We're doing a home reno. I'm going to be kicked out of this house for a few months, so probably will not be able to do live streams. We'll figure out another way to keep the reviews flowing, but maybe the best way to keep up with super review stuff during the reno, the summer of reno, is to join the Discord and yeah, just hold tight. Meredith asking, how do I like these versus the Kinda Lava? You talking about the Helios versus the Kinda Lava? They're pretty different. I'd say that the Kinda Lava is closer to what I described about the Supernova. It's not as incisive and good at imaging as the Supernova is, but the bass is probably actually a little bit better. So if that helps you frame how I would describe the Helios is definitely more mid-forward, thinner sounding than the Kinda Lava. The Kinda Lava is a little bit on the dark side, whereas again, I described the Helios as kind of bright tonally. Red Gopnik saying, I feel comfort can be surprisingly overlooked given that people will be wearing them for dozens of hours a week. I tend to agree. I know that there's kind of like a contingent of people that are very focused on sound, and they will say like, I only care about the sound. And you know, I've had people complain in my reviews like, why don't you just describe the sound? Like, why are you wasting my time telling me about the physical aspects of this IM? And like, to my mind, I'm like, bro, you gotta live with this thing. The thing can sound amazing, and if I don't want to wear it in my ears, probably not going to wear it. That's just kind of the truth. So I agree with you. Jadis, yes, I know Timmy, Crin, and HBB and Precog, they all have their own ranking list. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with their ranking list. I'm telling you that I don't think that way. I do not know how to put together a 1 through 200 list of all the IMs I've heard, or that I have here in my studio. I don't know. It would just be a bunch of bleh, and here are like my 5 favorites, and then there's kind of just a bunch in between that depends on my mood. I don't know. Jadis, thank you for asking about the chickens. Yes, the chickens should be okay. We're going to try and find a place, because again, I'm going to not be living here. I'm going to try and find a place that's close by, so the chickens will remain in the backyard, and I'll be able to stop by every day and let them out. Take care of them. S2 saying, Grolix saying, I'd want a ranking list to see if I got an IM that people think is good. Which, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head in a way that, you know, you're pretty good about doing. Like, I never know if you're being sarcastic, just like kind of like biting commentary, or if you're being honest. But I think that that's kind of is how people use a ranking list, is they, I don't know, using it for like personal justification, stuff like that, which is not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but again, I just don't think like that. Like, you want my list? It's Supernova, and then a bunch of stuff below that. That's my list. And it's not Supernova for everything, right? There's some things that other IMs actually do better than Supernova. And sometimes that's what I want. But most of the time it's Supernova. It's just chasing. I can't remember if you knew about the different tunings for the kind of lava, but I sent mine to them to get the intended tuning HBB wanted for them instead of the tuning we got. Yeah, so let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I'm gonna do a little bit of squig diving. Oh man, my screen's not showing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to resolve this for you. Let me see real quick, hold on. Can I resolve this real quick? There's a good chance I can't. I cannot. Well, no squig diving for us today. Yeah, basically what I was going to show is on Squiglink, I've actually graphed both the original kind of lava, which I've got, as well as a version that was bass boosted by, hold on, let me remind myself. Okay, I just have it as it's just described as a bass mod. So this was from Super Review Community's own, let me line this real quick. I'm Your Huckleberry, aka David Volsvig. He bought the kind of lava, and he actually sent it out to Letshore, I think, much like you're describing, to get it modified with an additional, I want to say this is like 3 dB bass. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, from 66 to 69 dB of bass. So yeah, like a 3 dB bass boost that starts at like 1,000 hertz. So like it's a pretty thick, meaty bass boost. I personally much prefer the original kind of lava, but if you heard the original kind of lava, you thought it was a little bit bass deficient, well, there you go. And yeah, I understand that probably is a little bit closer to what HBB intended for the frequency response of that collab. It was fortunate for me that that collab went a little bit weird. I really like the kind of lava as it is, but if you wanted more of that HBB bass, you can get it done. Meredith Gordon making a good point. There's a reason that 90% of people sell the Monarch Mark II due to fit. And I think that is true. I mean, I don't know that 90% of people that own a Monarch Mark II are selling it because of fit, but 90% of the listings that I saw, because I bought a Monarch Mark II last year, 90% of the listings I saw were people saying, it sounds great, but it doesn't fit my ear. So yeah, just kind of back to that point that the physical stuff matters a lot. It's not just about the sound. I do kind of wonder, like, maybe the people that are only concerned about the sound aren't even necessarily planning to buy the thing. They just kind of want to be part of the sound discourse, the audio discourse, as it were. Android. And they just want to know what's the best sound and start, working on this hierarchy of audio and reinforcing it socially. Jada's saying the Monarch Mark III is coming out. Yeah, I saw that, and it looks like it's probably in a different shell, hopefully smaller. I'm sure they've gotten plenty of feedback from not just me, but other people selling their Monarchs because it didn't fit them. So hopefully they do something about that. Honestly, like, I would assume that actually kind of cuts into their ability to sell new IMs when there's so many used Monarchs out there, because it doesn't fit very well. So if I'm going to go buy a Monarch, if there's 3 of them available on the used market because they didn't fit the people, well, I'll probably just buy that rather than buying it new. Whereas if those people were super happy with their IM, they wouldn't be selling it, and I'd have to buy it new. Javier Martins, I respectfully disagree on the source thing, but thanks for the answer. Really appreciate it. Yeah, Javier, I've spent a lot of time personally, like, interrogating my ability to hear the difference between sources, because when I first got into this audio, like, I kind of thought I did. Like, it wasn't super obvious to me, but I was like, oh yeah, I think that does sound a little bit different. But when I intentionally went out of my way to, like, blind A/B test myself, that was where it became obvious that those differences that I thought I was noticing, I don't want to say they're not there, but, like, my confidence in identifying them and saying, like, oh yes, this is what I'm listening to, versus that, it went away. Okay, I invite you to try it yourself, and that's not like a challenge. I don't really care if we disagree on this point, and you're being respectful about it, which I appreciate. So I'll do my best to be as well. But yeah, I guess I'll just say I have not arrived at this position of source skepticism for lack of trying. I have tried to see how much of a difference sources make for me. Scott Pledger, agree. The Monarch Mark II is way too big with underscores. I agree. And S2 saying the IE600 fit was glorious, which I also agree with. It's like the opposite of the Monarch Mark II. And Grolic saying, I think most people don't know that you can even buy used IMs. Yeah, you definitely can. There's a couple of good places if you're in the market for an IM and maybe it's a little bit outside your price range. You might consider looking for it secondhand. Discord's a good place, right? On my Discord server specifically, there is a deal section where people will frequently put up for sale their stuff that they want to sell. Crinical's Discord server, very active, also has a nice collection of stuff. There is AV Exchange on Reddit, which is pretty active, and you can find a lot of good stuff there, as well as on Headfi. Headfi.org has classified section that is pretty active. Really good places to find, again, an IM that you might want, that you're a little bit hesitant to buy, and you find that you can get it, save 30-40%, might push you over the edge. I'm not trying to get you to spend your money, but if you're looking for an excuse, that's a good way to make it easier. Yes, Grolix, and also good for taxi, but never mind. Leadfoot saying the Monarch Mark II just barely fits in my ears, but I've had people try them where it doesn't even come close to fitting. Yeah, I would say it fits me. I can wear it and listen to it, but I always feel better when I take them out of my ears. I'll just say that. All right, folks, I think that is gonna do it. I'm gonna wrap this one up here at 3:45 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. Thank you all for tuning in for the live stream and the conversation as always. If you haven't on the way out, please do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, ding the YouTube bell, and join me on Discord. Most of these fine people that we've been having this chat with are on the Discord server. So if you found their conversation riveting, or you just want to continue the conversation beyond the couple of hours a week that I do these live streams, I recommend you join us on Discord, and I'll chat to you there. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next super review. Have a good week, folks.